Welcome to the DCL Learning Series. We are very excited to share this story today with you on the conference that wasn't. We have a very special guest here, and I'm excited to jump right into it. So today we have our two panelists. If you could click the next slide, please. Amanda Sulitz. Amanda is the Manager of Research Integrity at IEEE, and my colleague, David Turner. David is DCL's Digital Transformation and Content Technologies Consultant. So there's so much to talk about today. This is quite a mystery, espionage and all the elements of a blockbuster movie. So David, Amanda, over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Marianne. And Amanda, it is great to have you. I have been looking forward to this all week. All right, so just for everybody, in terms of kind of setting this up, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of things written in the industry along the lines of how today's speed and the pressure to publish has possibly let's just say encouraged some shady practices, and this sometimes leads to things like a failure of authors and editors to note articles or note things like retracted articles or other problematic research. And we hear tales of paper mills, their threat to research integrity. But personally, I know for me, and I think probably for a lot of people, I've sort of limited that to the realm of journal articles, and that's really not the only place. What we've been discovered is there's also this kind of growing threat in the realm of conferences and conference proceedings, and in some fields, that's probably even more important than journals. So that's what our guest is here to talk about today, her adventures in conference land. So Amanda, let's dive in here. Tell me a little bit, I guess, to start, just about how you're structured, how you fit in, the kind of the work that you're doing, and what you have to do with conferences that weren't or wasn't or whatever.
That aren't. Yes. So just a quick little background about IEEE. So we are the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, which by being an institute, that means we're a society of societies. So, we're made up of all different fields of electrical engineering. We have communications, antennas and propagation. We have power. We have electron devices. We have computers. We have everything. And as you already mentioned, David, some of these fields are actually conference proceedings papers are the journal currency. I have a PhD in chemistry, and back when I was getting my PhD, I was like, conference papers, what's that? Like, nobody cares about that. But apparently, as I learned since working here, that that's actually like very important. So we've been seeing a transition in the last several years from journals having issues with their what we call special issues here at IEEE. Some other publishers might call them like a topical collection. But that misconduct is now coming into conferences. So one of the things about IEEE is we are a volunteer-led organization. We have over 500,000 members around the world, and those members are responsible for helping us run our publishing, our everything at IEEE. Yeah. They're very dedicated and great. And one of the things that I've closely been working on since starting here for the last 3 years is an ad hoc committee that is working between our technical activities. It started as technical activities, but now it's just with our conferences group, and then also with publications, which is where I work. And initially, this ad hoc committee came to be because of the growing concerns of misconduct in conference quality. And we've been focusing on a myriad of problems, but through this conference, this ad hoc was really instrumental in helping to detect and eventually retract this entire conference proceedings. They've also been really helpful in getting us to improve some of our policies and make updates there. One of the big policy updates we made with the help of this ad hoc, which, you know, in hindsight was a little silly that we didn't have this, but at least now we have it. But it's actually requiring the peer review information for conferences. That was never a requirement we had. And as you'll later learn in this presentation, that actually was really instrumental in helping us identify this as a problematic conference. You know, and they've also helped us to improve our educational modules for new conference organizers, because sometimes you just might not know, and it's important that you're taught this. And then also we've been work on our pre-screening procedures to make sure that we catch problematic content at submission rather than post-publication.
Gotcha.
And, you know, and now we go to the 2024 International Conference on Optimization Computing and Wireless Communication, or ICOCWC, as you'll see it referred to throughout this presentation.
All right, so I understand you've got this committee, and they're looking for things. How specifically with this conference, and I'm sorry, I feel like I should call you Dr. Sulitz now that I know about this PhD. Specifically with this conference, what was it that sort of drew your attention? What were the red flags that sort of had you pay attention to this?
So the thing that first drew our attention, it actually came from a routine plagiarism complaint. So we have a publishing ethics alias, which I'll share that at the end of this presentation. IEEE also has an ethics reporting line where you can anonymously submit complaints. But so this came in, and somebody had a complaint that an article published in this conference proceedings was plagiarized or plagiarized other work. And as part of a plagiarism investigation, you know, we have to look at, we get the data that's in our, I guess, one of our databases that's just, you know, who sponsored the conference, who was the conference chair, you know, how was the conference held? Was it an in-person, a hybrid, online only? You know, has all of that kind of information there. And then, you know, I also have to go into Explore, which is our publishing platform, and get the paper so that I can send it to the volunteers to review the complaint. As I was looking at this, you know, I go into our database to get the information so I can contact the organizers and the sponsors of the conference to let them know there's this investigation coming. And, you know, I noticed that it was a hybrid conference, and, you know, I take note of where it is. And then as I was going into Explorer to download the paper so I could run a similarity check on it, I just was kind of poking around Explorer, and I noticed that the conference was supposed to have taken place at a university in Ethiopia. Every single author affiliation that was listed on Explorer, nobody was from that university, nobody was from Ethiopia, and nobody was from the continent of Africa. Everybody's affiliation was either in India or China. So that, you know, was a very, like a, wait, what happened here kind of moment. So, you know, and then I started to dig around more in it. You know, eventually we realized that the conference, simultaneously, this ad hoc has been working to you know, clean up our publication record. So we've been using heavily the problematic paper screener, which is a tool that was developed by Guillaume Cavanac, who is a sleuth out of France. He developed this tool, and, you know, it actually screens for a variety of different things. Like, you can look at papers that have cited retracted papers. It's called feet of clay, meaning that it's not built on a solid foundation. You can see if they've used like MathGen or SciGen, which is, you know, just AI created math essentially, or just completely fake papers. But, you know, this problematic paper screener also was useful. I think that, and the way that tool works is somebody either has to flag it to them, or they have to find it on their own to upload it into the tool. It's not like an ambient screening type of thing. So at the time when we got this plagiarism complaint, the ad hoc was aware of this conference as part of the tortured phrase detection we were using. But it was kind of lower on our radar, because I think at the time they had flagged like maybe 20 articles. So we were, you know, going on priority of who had the highest amount. but then when we started to look at the papers, we realized that there was a lot more going on. And we looked at every single paper in that conference, which was 314
Oh my.
articles. Yes, it was a long road of review. And we realized that like the papers were just not, I don't know. I can't say for certain that they were all AI generated, but they look to be AI generated. You know, the math didn't fit in the paper. Like when they would have equations, it had nothing to do with what they were talking about. Just kind of poor quality overall speaking. So that led us to decide. The ad hoc said, let's retract the entire proceedings. And that's when we had more fun, when we started to contact the authors and organizers.
Oh yeah, because well, so if I understand correctly, you started looking at this thing and it was relatively routine at the beginning, but everything just started to come apart as you peeled the onion here. The conference location didn't match. None of the authors came from that university. The affiliations, things started to look really weird in the different papers, and it just all got, well, you started running it through these tools. What was the name of the tool again?
The problematic paper screener.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, all right. So then you have to obviously start contacting the authors and I'm guessing the organizers as well. So talk to me a little bit about that. How, take us through the process of, reaching out to an author and getting their take on this.
Right. So we follow the NISO correct recommendations when we retract an article, which I believe COPE has also adopted, which is the Committee on Publication Ethics, which many people on this call are probably aware of. So as part of that process, anytime we're retracting an article, we contact the authors of the article, assuming we have their information available. Sometimes we try and it bounces back or something. But so we contacted the authors from every single one of these articles. We received responses on about 121 of them. So almost half of the authors responded, or half of the authors on papers responded. And as as we started to go through these, I was noticing that I kept seeing the same thing over and over, which, these authors don't have any apparent connection with one another. Like, they're not all from the same university to where they might, be sitting around having lunch together and say, hey, what did you write for this? So 80% of the 121 responses we received were one of these two templates. And it was like to a T, everything, like the same bold that you see here. They would change their paper title, like they would catch that. But it was, very interesting as we were going through this. And it got even more interesting as I was starting to collect these, because some of these authors actually left template text behind. So I don't know who was sharing this template with them, but like this person, so the subject line, we ask when we send the retraction, we say, please respond to this email to state your agreement, disagreement, etc. And a lot of people were actually responding back with a different subject line. And they would, say disagreement with retraction and paper reference, and then they put the DOI. But then, so this person actually had left this, I guess, like instruction set, I'll call it. And I think my favorite thing of all of this was we actually had an author respond to a retraction that they weren't actually an author on.
Oh, great.
I don't know how, and like I triple checked. Like I even went back and I'm like, did I accidentally contact this person? Like, no. Somehow they found out about somebody else's paper being retracted, but they also didn't want to be, they disagreed with it also. They didn't want the retraction. So it was interesting. And so initially, we don't usually contact the organizers of a conference if it's more than a year out. Like we'll deal with the society that sponsored the conference instead. So in this particular case, it was over a year since the conference was held. So we didn't actually contact the organizers that were listed in that database I mentioned earlier, but they found out about all of these retractions and they contacted us. And I was like, okay. And this was actually the entire email that I had. Like I didn't truncate anything in the screenshot. They didn't tell us who they were. They just signed it like the organizers. That was all they said. And you know, it comes from this anonymous just Gmail here. It's not coming from, you know, Amanda Sulitz at Gmail or something. And we were like, you know what? Since you're contacting us, tell me who you are, and also give me your peer review data. Let's see what's going on here. So we asked for it in 3 business days. They ended up giving it to us in 9 days. And I went through and I looked at all of the peer review data they gave. So, you know, there was 314 papers, and then there was the thing that I noticed initially that was weird is every single paper had exactly 3 reviews. That is quite an anomaly in general to even find 3 reviewers to agree to review all of those papers. IEEE's policy is that you have to have 2. So they went above and beyond here and got 3. And I hope that everyone in the audience here can hear the sarcasm when I say they went above and beyond to get 3 reviewers, because we're going to find out that there weren't 3 reviewers. But none of the articles suggested rejection, or none of the reviewers suggested rejection. Reviewer responses also miss the start or ends of words, as if like somebody had copied and pasted them in. So if you were saying like this paper should be recommended, it would say like lowercase h, his paper should be recommended. Or like the end of the, like, you know, the end of the sentence would be slightly truncated. There was also, I don't even know how I managed to catch this. This was just dumb luck on my part. But there was at least one example where the content of the review had nothing to do with the topic of the paper. So like an example of that would be if I was talking about like my favorite types of pie, and then I mentioned that you could serve pie a la mode, but then the reviewer report started talking about different flavors of ice cream. Like, and had nothing to do with pie. So like it had caught like a piece of what the article was talking about, but it wasn't actually what the article was about. And then also when the organizers responded back to say who they weren't anybody that was listed on the organizing committee, and they were in fact authors of one of the papers that was being retracted. So again, don't know how they got that information.
Right. So you had very questionable responses from these authors. Number one, and so then, not even asking for it, you got responses from the organizers, and their initial response was kind of questionable. So you asked for some additional data, and it just got worse. I think you mentioned earlier the conference website. There were some red flags there.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? And then I'm also interested to see how this connects with, you know, the concept of a paper mill.
Okay.
I'll shut up and let you talk.
Yeah, I got all of, sit tight, David. I got all of this for you. All right. So yeah, the conference website, simultaneously, I love to click buttons. I have so much fun just like digging. I just love to dig, and I love doing all of this. And so, you know, so first looping back to, I don't have a screenshot of this in the presentation, but first looping back to the fact that it was a hybrid conference and being held at a university in theory. So the first thing that was weird about all of this conference website didn't have any information about travel, like not even like the room the conference was happening in. Like if you were like, oh, it's in the auditorium in the, you know, the IEEE building or something. There was no information, like no hotel recommendations, nothing, absolutely nothing on the website. So, I mean, if people are coming to this conference, like they should know where they're going. Like,
and it's not a small conference. You've got 300 papers, right? So,
right. Yeah. It's so that was a little weird. But then, you know, I was kind of just poking around to see if the information in our database for who was listed as an organizer was the same as what was on their website, because sometimes that can be an area where we can find discrepancies. But then as I'm, you know, clicking around, this person on the right was actually, I started to see his name everywhere. And that is what my little like spidey sense started to go off. So now I guess I'll say if there's any publishers on this call, like flag this name because as a public service announcement from IEEE, he is still active. So like if you're, he does books publishing, he does conference publishing. I don't know what else he does, but if you sing this name in a book or anything proposal, like, make a mental note of that and check it out a little bit more thoroughly. But so yeah, so this gentleman here is a name I'm going to keep showing you. But so as I'm clicking around on the website, I find this review process and I see this reviewer form button and I was like, what's that? I'm expecting, so I used to work as an in-house editor before I started at IEEE, and I'm expecting this reviewer form to say something like, what areas do you want to review in? Like, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, what makes you qualified to be a reviewer? You know, are you a PhD candidate? Are you a professor? Something along those lines. So I click this because I like to click buttons, and I click this, and this is the reviewer form. Again, not truncated. This is the entire form. It asks me if I want to be a guest editor in special issues. For what? I don't know. And then it asked me if I want to be on the editorial team of this Journal of Machine Learning and Signal Processing. And they were so kind to give me a website link. And I was like, say less, let's keep clicking. So I keep clicking and I go to this website. Oh, sorry, I had animations there. So I go to this website. This is the art publisher's website. And, you know, again, look who's here. He's editor-in-chief of this journal.
Surprise.
And if people in the audience aren't aware, this is clearly a predatory publishing website. There's no ISSN information. They're indexed by Google Scholar. Like, that's not a thing. They're not indexed anywhere. Like, this is not a reputable journal. So, you know, I start clicking around this website because I like to click my buttons. And I get to the contact information. I was like, I'm gonna Google this website. I'm gonna Google this address. Let's see what comes up. So I Google, and I get the first journal here that I was just looking at that I just showed you. And then I come down here and I see this Agastar Research Technologies. And I started at IEEE beginning of 2023, and there was a case involving this when I was coming here. So like they were kind of wrapping it up, and I was like, when I saw this on the Google results, I was like, why do I know this name? Why do I know this name? And I asked one of my coworkers who's been here for like 20 years, and he was the one that handled this case. And he was like, oh yeah, like that's the Anna Albakina paper mill. I'm like, oh, sure enough. So this is my connection to the paper mill now, David. So these were screenshots that Anna Albakina, she's a paper mill sleuth. She's based in Germany. She has been so incredibly helpful. We have a great collaboration with her and some of her co-authors. I just want to like do a quick little plug for her because I do really appreciate how helpful they've been in helping us identify conference papers specifically that have been posted online for selling authorship. We're actually working on another huge case with them right now. But so these were screenshots she had sent us back, I think it was probably 2022, so it was before I started here. But you know, you see the Agastar, you know, website on this post, you see the logo up on this post, you see it over on this post. So it was everywhere. You know, it's down here, got the same website that was on the Google screenshot I showed you previously. So it's like, oh, this isn't good. And so, you know, and then I was like, what's this DigiConfi thing? Like, let me check this out. Let me click more buttons. So I click this, and this, when I searched for the name, this is what Google told me. It said that it is a branding for events and publication services. And the AI overview in Google knew that it is associated with a predatory publisher. Like, Google knows this, so everyone should know it. So again, my public service announcement. But so these are just like some quick little screenshots. It's the same information, but we have the same address here. This is a conference they're hosting. Look, it's our friend again. Our friend's popping up down here on conferences that are being hosted by this other platform. So, I mean, it was, yeah, it was, there was a lot that we connected back to this. And, you know, it's served a wealth of information to us in this process. We, you know, we learned through this about like what other policies we need to update and that we're working on updating. We've started to scrutinize all of our conferences more. So not just new conferences, because there's always the opportunity, or there's always the chance that just because a conference has been held 3 times before, it doesn't mean that the 4th time it's not going to get hijacked in some way. So we're starting to, you know, look at who's actually organizing, you know, kind of doing some rough Googling before. Some of my colleagues have actually turned Amanda into a verb. So like they have Manda a conference now. You know, but just like kind of looking like, do the conference logistics make sense? Is the local committee really local? So if you're, again, claiming you're hosting a conference at a university, you should have people from that university because you need somebody on the ground to like help organize the catering, you know, just like that, like kind of like simple stuff that you may not really think about. But if everybody is coming from like a completely different country, like they don't know maybe necessarily what's going on at that venue. But then like the biggest flag here was where the author is coming from. You know, it was listed as hybrid, so there's a chance that you might have people presenting online, but all in all, the entire author list shouldn't be from not even the continent where the conference is being held at. And then some of the IEEE also has policies that you need to, your conference needs to align to our publication policy. So about peer review and like the number of reviewers and the peer review data you have to supply, and you know, using certain screening tools, you have to screen for plagiarism, like things like that need to be outlined on your website. So that's an IEEE policy, but we also check now to making sure that they're saying that. And you know, I mentioned this is the 3rd year of the ad hoc, but we're still going and we're going to keep going. And for everyone in the room that wanted to know, if you didn't do it on your own already, this is a street view from Google of the address that where all of this was coming from. Yeah, I don't even really know much what to say about that, but this is the paper mill. Yeah, and here, here's my contact information and our publishing ethics contact line, just pub-ethics@IEEE.org. Also included David's email here. And I wanted to just go to this useful resources link. So I mentioned the problematic paper screener. Yep. This is a link to, or if you want to write down these archive, these preprints, but this preprint will bring you to the problematic paper screener. And then Anna Albakina and some co-authors recently published a preprint called Opening Pandora's Box, Paper Mills and Conference Proceedings. It is, IEEE is quite heavily mentioned in this preprint, but as I mentioned before, Anna and colleagues have been so helpful in bringing this to our attention and providing us with information to help us get this, and we're working on that project now. So thanks to both of these sleuths here and all of the other sleuths that also help work with us and give us content to keep me busy.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, and I know that it's really critical because, I mean, as you talked about this example today, it just was piece after piece, and I think maybe some of the things were pretty extreme. I'm encouraged with how much you guys have learned and how much things have improved, because not every conference that's questionable is as obvious as this one, right. And so I know you can't talk, you don't want to talk too much about tools lest people start figuring out ways around those tools, but I guess it's fair to say that every day you're investing in new tools, new processes, new ways, new communication. What are some of the most important pieces in terms of watching for these things, to maybe find those examples that are not so obvious?
Oh, I mean, we have a a suite of tools that we work with, and a variety of vendors that we work with on their tools, DCL included.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Things were, IEEE is part of the STM Integrity Hub. So all of the suite of tools that's offered in there, but that is only in our journals, that we don't currently run those for conferences. We're hoping to one day make that happen. But there's all kind of screening in there. I know recently, well, it's actually not that recently. It's been about a year or two now. We've been working with DCL to help us with our plagiarism screening, and that's just kind of reading the reports. IEEE gets over 200,000 submissions every year, and we have a mandate from our volunteers that every article that's published on Explore needs to be screened for plagiarism, so similarity report. And we've been working with DCL to help streamline that process, and it's been a really great process. And through working with DCL, do a little commercial plug here, even though that wasn't the intention of this, but we've actually identified more signals to help us detect paper mills in conferences that we didn't have before. And it's, we're finding more and more every day. So, I'm glad that this was just kind of serendipity that I also was doing this learning series, yeah. But it's been really helpful. Just all of these different tools, and everything's evolving too, because the nefarious actors are evolving. So yes, publishers need to, it's the arms race. But it's been interesting, and I know I have job security for the next eternity.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate the plug and all of that, and I think it's great. And I think one of the things that we've discovered in working together with you guys is that just getting the information can be really difficult, because it can be overwhelming, right? So you get 300 papers, or you start running things through similarity checks or what have you. You get volumes of information back, and so then the problem is not so much finding the things. It's digging them out. What are the important ones? What are the ones that we need to? What are the ones that are likely not a problem? What are the ones, where should we focus our efforts, and really, doing that. So hopefully we're able to. I know we've got a handful of projects that we're doing together. So hopefully
I think I have 3 more on deck for you.
Oh, well, come on, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, Mary Ann, we actually finished here on the kind of the early side, but I'm sure that there are probably some questions out there.
Yeah.
Most likely for Dr. Sulitz and not me, but
yeah, Dr. Sulitz, we have some questions. Thank you, everyone. Please, if you have more questions, let's continue this conversation, particularly while we have Amanda here. So, Amanda, how big is the research integrity team at IEEE in terms of the total amount of time that you put into the investigation? Can you speak to that and give us an estimate?
Oh, well, so it's a weird answer for IEEE. So our publishing ethics team specifically, I think we have 8 now, 7. We have 7 right now. About to be 8. Oh my gosh. But we also so
under 10.
Yeah. So the team right now is kind of split in. We do 3 different functions. So we have like the IPR side. So getting copyrights, getting people registered to run the that kind of like more housekeeping type of thing. We have me and another person who works exclusively on conferences, and then we also have people who work on journals specifically. And then we also collaborate very heavily with a different wing of the publications team that just helps give us data all the time too, from like Scholar One, which is our manuscript submission system. And we work really closely with them. And I think there's like 7 people on that team. So they're not officially on the publishing ethics team, but we work extremely closely with them. We actually met with them this morning about cases. So we have like an unofficial, like 15, I guess we'll call it. And then the time we spend on a case changes greatly depending on what the case is. We have cases had this just been a routine plagiarism case, those are handled relatively quickly. We still have a process where it needs to be reviewed by all of our volunteers, which does take some time because of just the cadence of meetings and things. But you know, those, when it's a nice, like, you got that doc to doc comparison, you say, oh, it's 60% plagiarism. Like, it's, you know, we have to contact the authors, we give them time, but I mean, those all in all, I think are handled within like a couple months usually. But then, you know, I actually, case isn't even done officially yet, but I have been working on an editorial misconduct case for 3 years now. Wow. And that was it's a lot of review. And, you know, I again work closely with the other side of the publications team to help do that kind of data analysis. We've worked with multiple vendors on that case too. It just depends on the complexity of the case. And, you know, we've noticed, well, we've been noticing it since I started here, but our caseload has actually been getting more complex too. I remember one of my colleagues, Tony, when he started here, you know, 20 years ago, when they would get plagiarism complaints, he literally would sit there with like a highlighter and, you know, do the overlap. And then that eventually we got Authenticate, but then that was easy. And then it turned into people paraphrasing. So it took a little bit more time to find it, but you could still find it. And now we're getting these huge networks, and it's like, so our caseload is increasing, but the time for each case is also significantly increasing. So it's right. It's a lot.
Yeah. How much involvement did the editorial office managers have in the whole process?
I think we might be using editorial office manager. How are you using that definition?
This was submitted from someone. So if the person who asked the question wanted to clarify that a little bit more, I think it's I interpret that as the response to, you have that research integrity team, but then you said there was some crossover with other departments in IEEE. So thinking about, like, you know, production, editorial, research integrity, what's that overlap look like?
It depends on the case. So we work more heavily with the other team when we have a journal investigation, just because our conferences are outside of that submission system. But we do work really heavily. Oh, actually, well, I mean, what am I saying? We also work with the conferences team. They have a research integrity group also. Completely forgot about them. Sorry about that. But there's a team of volunteers and also staff members that work on our conferences, events, and experiences team. So it just depends, like, what level of detail we need. It all varies. Sometimes it goes from none to full involvement. Okay.
And just to clarify, I think you answered the question, but by that, they mean people who run the day-to-day operations of the journal.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Just when we need to, we work with them. Yes.
And did you confirm that the authors of the papers and the proceedings were truly involved in the effort, as opposed to simply having their identities used?
Nobody claimed that they weren't an author. So when they got the retraction notice, that would be their opportunity to say, I didn't author this paper. And nobody said that. They just said that I disagree, and then a litany of reasons why they disagreed.
And then someone's just curious, how did you find your way into this field? PhD in chemistry to research ethics?
So when I finished my PhD, I did a postdoc with Kirk Shans, who is now retired. He retired last year. But he was an editor for an ACS journal. And so I kind of started to learn about the publishing arm from him. And then when it came time for me to finish my postdoc, I got a job as an in-house editor for applied physics reviews with AIP Publishing. And then I wore many hats at AIP Publishing, and then eventually found this research integrity. And, you know, like when I was little, I wanted to be a lawyer really bad. So I think I kind of always was interested in, I'll say, the investigative aspect of it. And
Yeah.
This, like, I get the best of both worlds. Well, I mean, I'm in engineering now, not in chemistry, but like I get to use my science, and I also get to scratch my CSI itch that I had as a child.
I'm just curious, did you fill out the reviewer form, that Google form
Oh
you shared
no,
with
goodness,
us?
no. Oh no.
Okay.
That's what that black
Okay.
box was. That was my personal email address on there. No.
I didn't know if you maybe made up your own anonymous
I mean, I've thought about
persona
it.
and
I've thought about it, but I have enough to keep me busy that I don't think I need to
Yep.
yeah.
too many rocks up.
I mean, another thing that I think is important to think about in this scholarly publishing ecosystem, we all want to share the tools that each other are using. We want to share names, like the person's name who you identified. I did put that in the chat. So Dr. Kannadasan. And we at DCL like to talk about some of what we're doing, but there's a balance between sharing too much of what we do, because we don't want these characters to get more ammunition, and we're just constantly chasing each other around. Just wondered if you have any thoughts on that.
So it's kind of funny. So yesterday, I actually just watched Digital Sciences on Demand webinar about the FOSI report, as well as forensic scientometrics. And there was 3 different sleuths who were presenting as part of it. And one of the sleuths on there was actually asked, one of the authors of the paper mill Pandora box paper here was asked a similar question. And I think my answer is the same as hers. It's a fine line, because you want to share this information so that publishers know to look out for these things, or anyone who's publishing book chapters, or just anything you want. But then we do need to gatekeep a little bit. So as I mentioned earlier, like the projects that I want to keep developing with DCL, like we have signals we found, but I'm not going to share what that signal is, because but I mean, that's I think that's also one of the benefits of when we have in-person publisher meetings. I think that's always an opportunity for us to talk, not online, so it's a little bit more of a closed door, which I think is great. And I've had the opportunity to go to SSP meetings and STM meetings, and I think that's always just a wonderful source of information to hear what other publishers are doing without having to make it so public.
Right. Good pitch for attending these events. Do you have a sense for how the authors were recruited to submit the papers to the conference? Is this like a network of paper?
Those are computer skills I wish those are computer skills I wish I had to do like network analysis better. Sometimes I feel like I want to go get like a low-key computer science degree so I can learn how to do this. But I will say I can't speak for the motivation of these particular sets of authors. I know when we met with the Pandora's Box authors a couple months ago now, one of the authors on that paper had mentioned how they've done really deep digging into various, I think it was India specifically, some of their incentive programs that their universities have. And it's actually cheaper. So some of the universities will offer an incentive, and I'm going to just kind of make up numbers here. I don't remember them specifically, but like they'll say, oh, if you publish a paper, you get $500 US. But then like, if you look at the paper mill for, these authorship for sale posts, you can maybe like buy authorship on a paper for $50. So you can also use that as a money-making scheme. Like individually, hoping that you don't get caught. But then, I mean, there's so many, just, I guess, like the history of scientists love to assign numbers to things. And, when the H index was developed, that's being manipulated now by hyperprolific authors. And now we're seeing citation mills that are happening. It's the impact factor was being gamed for a while, and that caused Clarivate to change how they were doing the impact factor. I think that's like a blessing and a curse of scientists, is that we want to be able to measure, but then also people learn how to game the measurement.
Right.
So it's, and then when you get these rankings, you get promotions at universities, you get grant money, you get more students, you bring notoriety to university. And I think there's just like a lot that motivates people to want to do this. And we need to address the underlying issue to stop. I guess we would call it more of a cure than a prevention at this point. So like cure the reason why people want to do this instead of just preventing the bad papers from being published.
That's a big task.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and Mary Ann, it sounds like we've got a whole host of new webinars, topics just laid out there for us.
Did the papers in this specific case go out for multiple rounds of revision? Did it look like they actually took any of the fake reviewer comments into account?
Oh, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear for the person who asked that. Those were clearly all AI generated and not actually.
They were
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no, I don't think any peer review happened at that conference.
Can you speak to the a time period, the amount of time between your first, in this case, your first suspicions and then contacting the authors?
Oh, let's see. I think I got the plagiarism complaint. Let's see. Everything was subtracted in September of last year. And I think it took us about a year in total to go through everything. Contacting the authors is the last step, letting them know of the retraction. In this particular instance, we contacted them at the end. And it takes, we give them 2 weeks to respond, and then it just takes a little time to organize everything. But so between the authors learning and it actually being retracted was maybe a month, if even. But we had been working on this case for almost a year.
And were they using IEEE assets, your logo, any other?
So this was an IEEE sponsored conference, so they were allowed to use.
They were allowed to use that.
Yes.
Okay.
I did find one of the DigiConfi conferences that I don't think I put a screenshot of. I did find on there that they were claiming to be a Computer Society conference, and Computer Society was not. They had denied their application, so they got a nice takedown notice. So there are instances of our societies or IEEE as a whole being used without our permission, and when we do catch them, we tell them they need to stop with the help of our lawyers.
Yeah, I was going to say that seems to be one area where legal can get involved. Yes. But with something like this, how can legal get involved?
They didn't technically do anything illegal.
Right.
From like a criminality standpoint. I guess you could make like a FBI finances investigation here, but like we don't, that's not our problem. Not a publishing ethics problem. But our team works a lot with legal for a variety of reasons. We have some people, IEEE is we do ban people when they have violated our policies. So sometimes people get mad about that and then lawyers get involved. But we're truly a cross-functional team.
Right.
We work with everyone.
Right.
All right. Any other questions?
We have answered all the submitted questions. I can't thank you enough for your time and for your work. What you're doing is really important. And yeah, talk about job security. It's it's blessing and a curse here, huh? Well, thank you to everyone who has joined today. I know everyone needs to kind of get back to work, and certainly we need Amanda to get back on her cases. I want to remind all of you that the DCL Learning Series comprises things like this webinar. We also have a monthly newsletter and blog posts and other programs that we do put on throughout the year. So we hope to see you at our next one, but for today, this concludes our webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda and David.